Hello my young friends, have you ever delivered a speech while you were in school in class 11 or 12 or when you were in class 9 or 10? And what was the most important aspect that you focused on while you were delivering your speech or while you were preparing for your speech? Okay, today in this particular video lesson, we will be looking at how to write an effective speech, and that's part of the ISC English Language Paper both for class 11 as well as 12. This is a compulsory question. You have to write a 300-word long speech. So we will be looking at what should be the format of the speech, right? That is something which we will be going through. But before that, what's more important is what are the important aspects of a good speech that you need to bear in mind. So listen to this video carefully, because this is going to be very important for you to score the maximum marks in the speech writing question. The first aspect is, what is the purpose of the speech? Now, when I say purpose of the speech, you need to know what is the most important idea or point that is asked of you in your question paper. So read the question very carefully. For instance, if it is a speech that you as the head boy or the head girl are expected to deliver during the farewell day function at your school, that is really the purpose of the speech. So the purpose of the speech becomes maybe talking about remembering, reminiscing what happened during your 8 to 10 years in school, or whatever number of years you may have spent in school. What were your memories? So that becomes the purpose of your speech. So the question has to be read carefully in order for you to know what is the purpose of that particular speech. Number 2 is knowing your audience. Who are you addressing? In this case, you would be addressing, if it's a farewell day speech, you would be addressing your own batchmates. You may be addressing your teachers. You would be addressing your juniors, at least your immediate juniors, right? So if you are in class 12, your farewell day function, your farewell would be hosted by your 11th class, the batch which will succeed you. So your knowing your audience is very important. So therefore, when you are in the format, when you are greeting the audience, you need to include everyone, starting with the principal, the headmistress, the teachers, your juniors, and of course your own classmates, your own batchmates. The third point is very important. Speak directly. See, the big difference between an essay, a composition, which is question number 1, and a speech writing is that an essay is a little more general. But in speech, you need to use a lot of you and I. It is very direct. You are speaking. Speech itself comes from the word speak. So you are speaking to the audience. So the way you write it cannot be the same as you write an essay. It has to be a lot of you and I. You are kind of interacting with the audience that is listening to you. So that's a very important aspect of a speech. Okay. The fourth aspect that you need to bear in mind is the transition. Now, what do you mean by transition, or what do I mean by transition? Now, transition means that when you're writing the 4 to 5 paragraph long, or at least a 4 paragraph for sure, long speech, each and every paragraph in that speech cannot be disjointed, right? It cannot be like standalone kind of paragraphs or standalone kind of ideas, right? So when you're ideating, there has to be a transition. Each paragraph has to flow into the other. It cannot be that the second paragraph has absolutely nothing in common with what you're writing in the conclusion or in the third paragraph or even in the introduction. Each of them has to convey a particular idea, a particular thought process, and that is what I mean when I say transition. So the way you write a speech, your expression has to kind of convey a certain fluidity of language and expression and content. That there has to be a fluid, like the way water flows in a very smooth kind of manner. This also has to flow smoothly instead of being a very jerky kind of a speech. You understand what I'm saying? This is my favorite aspect. A lot of humor and emotional, oblique and or emotional. If you're talking about the farewell speech, the example that I'm giving, obviously it will be laced with both humor as well as emotions. You will be emotional because you're leaving a school where you studied for the last 8, 9, 10 long years. So there would be a sense of emotion. So a good speech will always harp on emotions. Emotions always work. Okay, so please do ensure that your speech, whatever you may be preparing between now and your final examinations, ensure that you prepare and include some bit of an emotion into the kind of speeches that you prepare for this particular question. Humor always works. Even when you are delivering a speech, you would have seen that if you include certain element of jest and humor, the audience will always react more positively, and that will always inspire and motivate you to go on with your speech. It's a tactic that always works. It's a tool that you should definitely have as part of your speech. So a humorous element really doesn't mean that you crack jokes, but the way you relate a particular incident can be done in a more light-hearted manner instead of being a very preachy kind of a speech. Oh, this school we learnt about the values of discipline. Instead of that, you could actually bring in some elements where you broke the discipline and how you learned a lesson from that. So you could just kind of even poke fun at yourself, crack jokes on yourself in order to keep the audience interested in what you are saying. So this is a very important element as far as your speech writing is concerned. Quotes, anecdotes, greetings. Now these are known as hooks on how you keep the audience hooked to your speech. So if you could remember a few quotes, you could actually include them in your body of the speech. You could include some anecdotes, what had happened with you. Keep it very brief. You don't have to go on and on and on about it, but keep it very brief. In 2 sentences, you should be able to relate a particular anecdote that had happened with you, which is connected with the final question of the speech. Greetings, very important, how you greet everyone. Dear principal, ma'am, dear teachers, the way you address it also carries marks. That's very important. And finally, the ending. Now, the ending cannot be like a boring vote of thanks. The ending cannot be a repetition of what all you have said in the entire speech. The ending has to make a very cogent, a purposeful kind of a comment, and it cannot be again disconnected from the rest of the speech. So it has to flow naturally, but it has to be written in such a manner, in a very well-rounded kind of manner, that you are ending it. You could end with a quote. That's something which is a very effective tool. You could end with an anecdote, but again making the larger point and connecting it to the question of the speech. If it's a farewell day function, you say that it's something which you will really miss, but I can promise you that I will keep coming back to the school to meet my teachers, and that is something which I will really look forward to. And you can end with a joke that I hope you teachers wouldn't think that you have had enough of us and wouldn't want to see us again, but I am promising you that at least I and many of my classmates will keep coming back to the school and want to interact with the juniors in order to tell them what we learned, what are the mistakes we made, so that they can learn from our experiences. That's a great way to end a speech during a farewell day function. So the ending, very, very important. So please keep these aspects in mind when you have to write a speech. Now let's quickly go through the format. First paragraph of course has to include the greeting of the audience. I just told you about it. Introduce yourself. Sometimes in the question you are said that imagine you are the head boy or the head girl or the sports captain. So you need to write it in such a manner. You cannot go back to a situation where you are writing just like any other student. That's one of the common mistakes that many students make. Introduce the topic depending on the question of the given in the question paper, and purpose of speech, which I've just mentioned. The purpose of the speech, what will be the basic idea which you are highlighting in that speech, that is something very, very important. Okay. The second and the third paragraph will be the main body of the speech. So this is something very, very important. So if you divide your 300 words, so it has to be 100 words, 2 paragraphs. The body will be almost 200 words, 50 words to the first paragraph in which you introduce, and 50 words to the fourth paragraph in which you end it. So that can be your rough word distribution as far as a speech is concerned. And at the end, do not forget to write the thank you, because that's the way you would normally end a speech as well. So you need to ensure that when you are writing a speech also, you don't need to use bombastic words, but do not use very commonplace words which is almost very conversational. Your speech has to be that you are interacting with the audience, but do not use slang words. especially in a very formal function like a farewell day function. So you need to be very, very clear about what is the occasion and what kind of language your speech should actually include during that particular occasion. So that is something very, very important. So if a speech is asking you to kind of recount some memories, again, you will have to rely a lot on anecdotes. So keep that in mind. Prepare yourself like that, and when you are writing it, please keep in mind your word limit, that you cannot go over the word limit, which is why I said ensure that your basic body has about 200 words and ending and introduction can be about 50 words each, so that your 300 word limit is adhered to. So I hope this format and the content of the speech writing is very clear. But as I said, if you take care of these elements, your expression is what you are going to get you the extra marks. So that is something which you really need to bear in mind. Thank you very much for watching.